Let me know when to start.
Okay.
We haven't started just yet. Everybody's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, stand down. It's all right.
Like, hi. I'll stare back. No, I'm just kidding.
Just get my good angles. I don't have a lot, so get the good ones.
All right, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carrie Rodriguez, and I am Matthew, Miles, David, Max, and Dylan's mom. And I am here today because I am the president of the National Parents Union. I am a mom, I'm an advocate, and I am a voice for millions of families across this country who are deeply concerned about the future of our children's education. I am here today because we are not going to stand by and allow America's education system to be under attack. We are not going to stand by and watch while it is destroyed, dismantled, and we descend into chaos. I got into this fight because of those 5 little boys. My oldest son has autism and ADHD. And when I was a mom who did not herself have a great experience in public education, started trying to navigate the special education system, I found a lot of difficulty. So I'll tell you something. As the mom of Matthew, who is a brilliant kid, he is an amazing kid who just happens to have autism, which to me is not a deficit, but is actually his superpower. Having the IDEA Act and the protections that it provided my son meant everything to me. And from not just that fear, but that deep love and knowing what it's like to sit at the end of an IEP table and feel like I had no power, only to find out that I had a lot of power. I'll tell you something, that is not something I'm going to let go. The proposal to dismantle the U.S. Department of Education is not just reckless. It's an outright attack on the fundamental right of every child in America to receive a quality education. Eliminating the Department of Education would have devastating consequences for students, particularly those from underserved communities. Without federal oversight, like the one I was just talking about, over 100,000 public schools across the country stand to gamble with more than $15 billion of annual support for students with disabilities, more than $18 billion in money that annually serves students from low-income families, and more than $900 million annually to assist English language learners and more. These are not just numbers. These are real children, children like mine. These are real families, like the families that we represent, and real futures at stake. Dismantling the U.S. Department of Education would throw our schools, our families, and our communities into even more chaos, because we have been in a state of panic, anxiety, and chaos now for weeks. These are basic, essential safeguards that ensure every single child, no matter what zip code they have, has access to the education they deserve. And that is something we're going to be playing with? Is everything up for grabs now? Without national oversight and clear education standards, we are flying blind when it comes to global competitiveness, not something I heard a lot about today. Our American public education system is a strategic national asset. I hear folks talking in the Ed Workforce Committee about worrying about China and India and our ability to compete on the field of AI and technology, and if our kids are prepared. I am hearing nothing about that and protecting that very critical asset that means everything to the future of our national economy and our national security. We are weakening our workforce. We are weakening our economy. We are weakening our national security. We cannot afford to let political ideology take precedence over the needs of our children and the future of this nation. That is why today I am calling on senators to stand up for our nation's families and the future of our children. We need to reject any nominee who does not commit to protecting our public education system. We need to reject any effort to dismantle the U.S. Department of Education and create further chaos and instability in our schools. Parents are watching. Families are watching. Our children's lives are on the line. This is real. This is not a partisan issue. This is a fundamental question of whether we as a nation are willing to uphold our commitment to educational opportunity for all. And there are really important, serious things we need to do. We do not need to manufacture a crisis. We have a literacy crisis in this country. And I will promise you this, and I will swear to it. Parents across this country are not going to sit idly by while our children's future are put at risk. This is going to make schools less safe in uncertain terms. We will fight, we will continue to organize, and we will make sure that every child, no matter where they live, has a shot at success in achieving their dreams. Because when our great-grandchildren ask us what we did when we were at our darkest, they're going to hear a story about how we came together with our friends and we stood to fight together. So now I'm going to welcome our dear friend who is another champion for children, for kids across this nation, and most importantly, our favorite dad from Connecticut, the Senator Chris Murphy.
Well, thank you very much, Carrie. Thanks, everybody, for being here today. How wonderful it feels to be in a room of parents and teachers and students standing up for public education. Donald Trump said last night that the Department of Education is a con job, right? It's extraordinary, extraordinary. But Donald Trump doesn't need the public education system because he can send his kids to private schools. The billionaires that are in charge of our government today, they don't know anything about the public school system because they don't need it. But there are tens of millions of families all across this country who can't send their kids to private schools, who rely on good quality public schools. And over again, they tell us that they want us to invest in and fix public schools, not in blue states, not in purple states, but in blue states, purple states, and red states. Kentucky, Arizona, when they had vouchers on the ballot to send taxpayer dollars to private schools, voted overwhelmingly against it. And that's important because what are they trying to do with the cloture of the Department of Education? Well, it's not what they say, right? They say, well, we want the federal government to get out of the business of micromanaging teachers and administrators. Well, what did Linda McMahon say to me in our exchange in the committee? That they might get into the business of micromanaging the individual classes and clubs that can exist at our high schools and middle schools. That African-American history may no longer be a subject that we can teach. That the Black Engineering Club may be purged from existence. That's micromanaging, right? That's micromanaging. But the other agenda here, the real agenda, is to just ship our public schools off to the highest bidder, right? The private equity industry is furious that it hasn't gotten its mitts into elementary schools, right? Like they have into every other sector of our economy. They are raising money as we speak, getting ready for the big privatization of our elementary schools and our middle schools and our high schools. And so the agenda is not to empower teachers and administrators because, in fact, they are planning to micromanage our teachers and administrators. You heard Linda McMahon say that today. The real agenda is to ship our schools off to Wall Street and whoever is willing to pay the highest price. Investors that will not care about our kids writ large, will definitely not care about the most vulnerable kids who need a little bit extra in order to make sure that they have a shot. All they will care about is profit. All they will care about is seeing our kids as pawns in order to make more money for themselves. So I'm really thrilled to be here with all of you today. I'm voting hell no on Linda McMahon to be Secretary of Education. And I'm going to do everything I can as this nomination moves through the committee and speeds to the Senate floor to expose what the real agenda is here. I'm so proud to be here with all of you, to be here with somebody who stood up for kids every day as Secretary of Education, Arnie Duncan. And I think I'm going to turn this over next to another parent to talk about the stakes, Ethan Ashley.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate that. Thank you, Carrie. I just want to say good afternoon. My name is Ethan Ashley. I have the honor of serving as the CEO of an organization called School Board Partners. We are dedicated to training and supporting elected school board members throughout this nation. We're in over 190 districts, impacting about 8 million students. And while our mission is national, I just want to tell you, my roots are in Louisiana. And so y'all know Louisiana is a state that depends critically on federal K-12 funding. And I know firsthand about that. I'm a retired school board member. I served 8 years during the pandemic. And I'm also a public school dad. So let me talk a little bit more about what's at stake here from the school board point of view. Imagine being at a school board meeting in a rural district where students are still struggling to recover from pandemic-related learning loss. The board is reviewing a proposal for high-dosage tutoring. It's a research-based program that they know works for kids, that we know works for kids. Test scores have revealed that students still remain behind in reading and in math. The board members know this program will work. They know it's a game changer, but there's a problem. Their federal funding has been slashed or reapportioned in uncertain ways. And without the certainty of that funding, they're going to have to make an impossible choice, Should we keep mental health services or fund tutoring? After difficult debate, they make the painful decision to reject the tutoring services. Not because they didn't believe it was important, but because they didn't have the money to do the thing that we all know needed to be done. And unfortunately, this hypothetical is a scenario that's playing out throughout our country right now. And dismantling the Department of Education would make it almost impossible for schools to address the ongoing academic challenges post the pandemic. And so let me be clear. The efforts to dismantle the Department of Education is not about cutting bureaucracy, not from my vantage point, having served on the school board. It is about cutting opportunities for children in working class families. And what message does it send to our students? It tells them that their education is not a national priority, that instead of investing in their success, we're willing to strip away the very resources designed to ensure that they have a fair shot. It's just not acceptable. It's not acceptable. We've seen the NAEP scores. Y'all know it. Student achievements decline. This is not a time to really do less. It's a time that we need to do more. And that's why we're calling on Congress, our senators, and the administration really to reject any efforts to weaken or eliminate the Department of Education, because we need them to be champions in this moment. We need to really invest in schools, invest in our educators, invest in our students. It's important because our future, our children's future, should never be negotiable.
don't say good afternoon because it doesn't feel like such a good afternoon when you're as concerned about public education as I am as a mom. My name is Jillian Rainingbird. I am an enrolled member of the Chippewa Cree tribe of the Rocky Boy Indian Reservation. I'm a mother of 3 brilliant, bold, beautiful babies. My 21-year-old baby, Monet, my would-be 12-year-old baby, Jayla, who was in a wheelchair, who is now in the realm of our ancestors, and my 6-year-old CJ, my adopted baby. I'm here today to advocate on behalf of my girls, the disabled community, and then, of course, my Indigenous communities. They all stand to lose so much. We all stand to lose so much if the Department of Education is eliminated. I come from Kansas City, where the literacy rates are at a crisis level. I recently moved back home to Montana to the reservation, and I'm now raising my 6-year-old in a public school on the reservation. Sadly, the literacy rates are just as bad. Being the mom of 2 special education daughters opened my eyes to the challenges that parents face doing their absolute all just to make sure that their child is guaranteed a quality education. We all dream about the best things for our babies, somewhere where they're respected and they're loved and they're nurtured. The thought of eliminating the Department of Education is unconscionable to me. Without national oversight and clear education standards, how can we ensure that our children are being properly educated? My concerns echo the concerns of millions of parents. What's the grand plan? There's no well thought out plan that any parents have an inkling of confidence in. Currently, the Department of Education supports about 7.4 million students with disabilities served by IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disability Education Act. Money that goes straight to the states and schools helped to teach our children to like early intervention. It's called First Steps in the state of Missouri. We all know that the Department of Education has needed more resources and funding to get kids back on track, and now the administration believes that cost cutting is the answer. Absolutely not. Our kids can no longer be an afterthought. My beautiful daughter, CJ, she needs one-on-one support. She needs a caring paraprofessional. She needs one-on-one interactions with her teachers. She needs transportation as a relatable service. If you're an IEP parent, the list goes on and on and on the services that our babies need. Our story is the story of many children across the country who depend on the adults to make informed decisions on how we can best equip the next generation of our children and in the future. That is why today I'm calling on the senators to stand up to our nation's families and for the future of our children. They must reject any nomination that does not commit to protecting our public education system. Reject any effort to dismantle the Department of Education, which will just create instability in our schools. We cannot give way to privatizing education or acting in any way that would allow anything harmful to come to our children. I want to say that our babies are not for sale. Their future is not for sale. I need the senators to put on their IEP mom shirt, take their power back, and I need them to protect our children.
Hello, everyone. First, thank you all for being here. My name is Joseph Tadros. I'm a 12th year math and science teacher and a team supervisor in Brooklyn, New York. Thank you. I know my students are happy that might not be in class today, but I'm really happy to be here today. Over 12 years, I've been an active member of Educators for Excellence, which is a national teacher-led advocacy group with tens of thousands of members across the country. And I'm one person speaking for many of them, saying that we overwhelmingly disagree with this administration's attempt to dismantle and eliminate the Department of Education, as well as the nomination of Linda McMahon. The administration threatens to eliminate Title I funding, IDEA funding, which is primarily going to hurt our students of low income and students with disabilities, as you heard. I've been teaching in Title I schools for 12 years now, and the teachers work night and day. It's a really tough job, and burnout is a real thing. They don't need to lose resources. We need to give resources to these schools and the school communities, because now is the time that we need to reinvest into education. The administration has threatened schools that want to teach culturally relevant history to their students and trying to eliminate the experiences and stories of those marginalized communities across the country from the classroom. And so teachers are there every day, and the teachers are really passionate about their job, mostly because we are in front of students and we want every single student to succeed. Now, when we speak with fire, fury, and emotion, it's because we care and people should listen. So EFRI did a recent survey, national survey, that showed only 20% of teachers across the country actually agree with the administration's planned actions as well as the actions that's taken thus far. So the slashing of education funding, designating certain curricula for schools, and the possibility of dismantling the Department of Education is not what teachers want. It's not leadership, it's sabotage. So as educators, for the next 4 years, we're not going to stand idly by. We are going to stand up, speak up, and we're asking, even though the administration might not listen to us, we want Congress, policymakers, and the public that care deeply about education, K through 12 in the United States, to speak up whenever they can and stand with us today. Because reject these harmful policies, because we need to reimagine, reinvest, and rethink education throughout the country from K through 12 and not dismantle it. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Jennifer Lopez and I'm a high school social studies teacher in Los Angeles, California. I've taught for over 13 years at both the elementary, middle, and now the high school level. And I'm also a longtime member and advocate with Educators for Excellence. My colleague Joe just outlined the alarming ways that this administration's policies are not only unpopular, but harmful for our students. But today, I also want to talk about what teachers actually want, the policies and the support that ensure that every child gets the education they deserve. So what do we want? First, I know, right? We want fully funded public schools. Yeah. As educators, we support Title I funding and IDEA funding to ensure low-income students and students with disabilities get the supports they deserve. As teaching at a full inclusion school, we get paraprofessionals and co-teachers that really support us in the classroom. And my fear is that if this funding is cut, we won't have them there to support my most vulnerable students, and we need them. I can only imagine the more demands that will be placed on us and my other teacher colleagues. Second, we also want a safe and inclusive classrooms for all students. Schools must be safe spaces for learning, not battlegrounds for political agendas. We need strong policies that make sure our students stay safe. Furthermore, we want a curriculum that reflects the truth in our diverse society. As an ethnic studies teacher, it's so empowering to teach students about their Mexican-American history. I teach in Boyle Heights, and just to see them and say, Miss, I see myself in what we're reading right now about the walkouts. It's just amazing. It's so empowering, right? And so history is not an opinion. It's record on facts, right? And our students deserve to know the truth. In addition, we want evidence-based practices in research. High-quality instructional materials have been shown to be the most cost-effective ways to bolster student success. Yet most students aren't getting them. So let's use the research, let's use it in the data to help us support our most vulnerable populations. Furthermore, we want real solutions to student debt. Many of my colleagues, teacher colleagues, friends, really depend on the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program to not worry and have another cost. Right? Living in LA, I have to pay for rent and gas and housing, and thinking about all those pieces is really like, it's a burden. And to now know that a lot of my friends are saying, like, if we don't have this is another cost that we have to do. And teachers, we already don't get paid enough, right? So it's just another thing to have to worry about. Lastly, we want investment in teacher leadership and career pathways. Teachers, we're on the front lines of education with your students day in and day out. And we need policies that empower us, that have true professional learning, and create meaningful career advancements so we don't leave the classroom. So in closing, we're here today to not just reject this administration's harmful policies, but to demand something better. Teachers don't need politics in the classroom. We need fully funded schools. We need safe and inclusive learning environments, evidence-based policies, a commitment to telling the truth in our classrooms. We call on Congress, state leaders, and the next Secretary of Education to listen to teachers and put our students first. Most of all, as Joe mentioned earlier, we must reimagine public education rather than dismantle it. If Congress really cares about our students, it should invest in our schools rather than strip them of resources. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, y'all. My name is Felix Rice, and I'm a junior at Georgetown University. I was born in Arlington, Texas, and I grew up around Dallas, and most importantly, I'm a very proud product of public schools. And I want to tell y'all, federal education programs are the backbone of this country. They make it possible for millions of students to reach their potential, and I know that because one of those students is me. I graduated from a public early college high school at a state university in Texas. And this opportunity, which changed my life, was made possible thanks to full state and federal financial aid, including multiple federal Pell Grants. And these programs didn't just help me pay for college, they also made it possible to apply in the first place. Receiving my first Pell Grant in high school qualified me for fee waivers to take the SAT, and more importantly, for college applications, which saved me thousands of dollars. If I hadn't gotten that, I would have had to take out a loan just to apply to college. But instead, I was free to apply to every school that I dreamed, including Georgetown, where I very proudly attend today. The opportunities that I've had, opportunities that I never imagined, exist because of investments in students like me. But Trump and Linda McMahon, they don't care about us. They don't care about the student that's working multiple jobs to pay their tuition. They don't care about the student that's going to be the first in their family to graduate college. They don't care about the student who had to fight centuries-long systems of inequality just to get an equal public education in the first place. They're not looking out for us. They're looking out for billionaires. Trump doesn't want to eliminate the Department of Education to get rid of bureaucracy. He wants to line his pockets and the pockets of his buddies. He wants to pull resources from students, teachers, and public schools to serve the corporate elite. Do you really think Donald Trump knows what it's like to wonder if you can afford to fund your dreams? We don't need someone who paid someone else to take their SAT to make it more difficult for working class kids to go to college. This is an all-out assault on low and middle-income students. It's about limiting opportunity for real kids who depend on programs like the federal Pell Grant to fund their education, students who deserve a chance at success just as much as those who are born into wealth. It is a choice designed to make it harder for people to afford college, a choice to gut programs that help young people succeed, a choice to dismantle the very foundation of opportunity in America. Teachers will lose their jobs. Schools will struggle with fewer resources, and students, especially those from working class backgrounds, will face even greater barriers to chasing their American dreams. We cannot let Trump and his administration sell out students to benefit the corporate elite. The future of this country is not for sale. We have to fight to protect Pell Grants, to protect public education, and protect opportunity for all of us. Thank you.
Amen. We can all go home now. So, class dismissed. Felix, I want to thank you for your heart and for your passion, what you're doing. And I'm the last speaker. I'm also very clear. I'm the least important speaker here. Hearing from students, hearing from teachers, hearing from parents. That's what this is all about. And I appreciate all of you. Hopefully your class will understand this in a day. Heck of a lesson to come back and talk about tomorrow, what you guys are doing. But this is sort of who we are. And I want to say a couple things and sort of open up to your questions. First, Senator Murphy had to leave. I can't overstate how important he is to our country right now. As we search for a center of gravity, my personal opinion is he's at the center of that. He understands what's at stake. He is not an alarmist guy, but he knows we're at a critical juncture, not just in education, but for our democracy. And he's fighting every day, every second to help us. So whatever we can do to support him, we need to do this. He and I met very tragically. He was a young senator then, right after the Sandy Hook massacre in Newtown, Connecticut. And that was my worst day here in D.C. That was President Obama's worst day. He and I met sitting on a bus, talking to teachers after that aftermath. Never imagined 20 babies and 5 teachers and a principal being killed. And he was right there on the front lines, not ducking the smoke. And he's doing the same thing today. So I know his heart. I know his character. Those experiences will stay with us the rest of our lives. And the fight to protect kids, the fight to protect our country, these things are not disconnected. So I just want to thank him. I want to start with a quick little history lesson. I think history matters. I think truth matters. A little quick history, I promise it won't be long, of Republican leadership on education at the presidential level. Go back to our nation's first Republican president, President Abraham Lincoln. He created land-grant colleges, transformational, during the Civil War. Fast forward to the last 70 years, every single Republican president has understood that education was in our nation's interest. It was a national interest. Eisenhower created the first federal role, the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, and pushed for greater STEM education following Sputnik. Pell Grants, talked about Pell Grants, the most important thing that's ever happened. Guess who signed that law? Nixon, President Nixon, signed Pell Grants into law. President Ford signed the law creating IDEA, heard from a couple parents, on the critical importance of providing all of our children, particularly those with disabilities, a chance to have a free and fair public education. That was President Ford. Reagan released the report, A Nation at Risk. First President Bush convened all the governors in Charlottesville and pushed many states to raise standards because so many states had abominably low standards. Second President Bush passed No Child Left Behind, the most far-reaching education accountability law in history, with bipartisan support. So I just say all this because I think context is important, because what's going on today is different than anything that has ever happened before. As you heard repeatedly, this is not about left or right or R or D. That's not the fight today. Education should be the ultimate bipartisan and nonpartisan issue. What's happening today is an assault on public education. And we can't sugarcoat it, we can't deny it, we can't run from it. Unprecedented in our nation's history. We can agree or disagree with anything any of those presidents did, anything Democratic presidents did, anything President Obama and I did, but none of that was an assault on education and creating opportunity. This is fundamentally different in our nation's history. With that backdrop of history, I want to address our Republican leaders in the House, in the Senate, and our mayors and our governors. We all know who Trump is. There is no secrets. There is nothing subtle about what he does. My question to all of you very directly is we need to know who you are. Who are you? And we all took an oath to serve the public. I took that oath. I took that for life. All of you took that oath as well. And the question is your vulnerable populations, your low-income students, your first-gen college goers, your Pell Grant recipients, your children with special needs, when their lives start to be impacted, when opportunities are taken away, are you going to side with President Trump? Or are you going to side with your constituents who you swore that you'd be there to support? And we're at a crux in our nation's history. We're at a crossroads. And the fate of our democracy, the fate of public education, is going to be determined in real time. I so appreciate everyone taking the time to be here because it's that important. And so I beg, I implore, I plead with Republican leaders in the House, in the Senate, and mayors and governors to remember the oath you took to help the public and serve the public, and figure out, are you here on this planet Earth to serve Trump and his interests, or to serve the people who gave you an opportunity, gave you the privilege of serving? And I hope that you will think through why you came into this part. And if we just had a few of them step up, that would change everything. We just need a couple profiles of courage. We don't need many. We just need a few. And the absence of that is stunning to me. But it is not too late, and there's an opportunity for them to step up. A third, I just want to talk briefly to the public servants across the entire government, but for me particularly, the Department of Education. It breaks my heart what they are going through now. When I first came here to D.C. in 2009, for months I'd go in every Saturday and sit down with career public servants and just pick their brains about what works and what doesn't. And their expertise, their knowledge, their passion made me and my team better. Nobody was being paid overtime. Nobody was getting, but for months, 9 to 1 on Saturdays, I would just sit and listen. And I had lots of what I thought was great ideas, and a few they said they were great ideas, and many said, Arnie, that's a terrible idea. And we tried that in 1980, and we tried that in 1990, and it was disaster. And I listened very, very closely to them. Everything we did, they helped to shape. You can critique any policy. We had no crises of integrity. Never a penny went somewhere else or where it shouldn't go because they were there. And to imagine anyone coming into a federal department and lose all of that knowledge and historical expertise and passion, that terrifies me. I can't imagine what I would have done without that infrastructure there. And to see them being demonized and villainized is mind-boggling to me. These are smart, passionate, committed people who have dedicated their lives to education and to serving, and to not benefit from that wealth of knowledge does anyone trying to serve and our children's country a huge disservice, a monumental sort of self-wound. Don't understand that. Fourth, the thought of dismantling the Department of Education. One of the joys of my job, I didn't spend much time in D.C. I traveled to all 50 states, traveled to Native American reservations, incredible learning lesson. Hundreds and hundreds of visits all over the country. Never once did anyone say, don't come to my state. Never once did anyone say, go home. We could disagree on stuff. We could agree on stuff. Everybody, 100% of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of visits, they wanted a partner in the Department of Education. Parents and students and teachers, universities, early childhood. They want someone here to listen, to partner with them, and to help them fight for their kids. I know that hasn't changed. People didn't care that much, left or right, RD. They wanted a partner in D.C. to fight for their kids. That's the mentality out there. This idea of returning things to the states, again, just a quick history lesson. Our state's education was segregated until the federal government and troops came to change that. There was not some golden age of state control. Prior to IDEA, children with special needs were denied access to public schools. Senator Harkin talked to me a lot about his brother, who was deaf, who could not go to public school. We know how low many state standards were, incredibly low. And we have low standards. Who gets hurt? It's the vulnerable kids. The elite kids are going to do fine. It's the kids who are being lied to and their parents told you're on track to be successful, and you're not even close. That's who gets hurt. So having a federal role to force states to integrate, to force states to educate all kids, to challenge states to raise standards, not lie to them, critical federal role. And to act like we can just walk away from that and things are going to be okay, that's not what history tells us. That's not what's happened. Final two things. I heard there's some chaos at Linda McMahon's confirmation or nomination hearing. I can assume everyone else that Trump is nominating is going to go through. So I assume, just being honest with you, that will probably happen. And what I would just say to her is that, I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I want her to be successful. I have no desire in her failing, because if she fails, our kids get hurt. And that I hope, like I challenge Republican congressmen and senators, I hope she looks in her heart and sees an opportunity to do the right thing by Felix and the tens of millions of students like Felix who just want a chance. And if she is prepared to do that, and again, I mean this so sincerely, I would do anything I can to help her, because I want her to win. I want her to be successful. But if she comes and has no control or just kowtows to what she's being told by Trump and Musk, then that's not just educationally a disaster, it is morally bankrupt. And she has to look in her heart and her soul and decide which way to go. But if she chooses to support and help public education, I will do anything I can to help her be successful. And the final thing I'll say is that it's important not to give in or, and this is, people in this room understand this, not to believe Trump's lies. If you're trying to shrink the federal government, the U.S. Department of Education is actually the smallest agency there. That's not the place you would start. If you're trying to shrink the federal footprint, you wouldn't be dictating what clubs or what curriculum you could have. It's not honest. If Musk is actually trying to reduce federal spend, he would not take $400 million for Tesla to get a contract, as we saw yesterday. So this is a grift. It is a scam. It is a fraud. And it is an all-out assault on public education. And collectively, we're in the fight of our lives. And I'm not a scared guy. I deal with gun violence every day in Chicago. I have for the past 8 years. I'm scared for our country. I'm scared for our children. I'm scared for our democracy. And we have to find ways to come together, have a little courage, push back, fight back, to give our country a chance for the next 5 decades. I thank all of you for your support. I want to thank all of our speakers for their heart and for their passion. And together, despite the real fear I feel, I'm not going to sugarcoat that, I deep down have a lot of hope. We have so many great people here in this room and across the country who want something better for our country. And collectively, we got to win. Thank you so much. Any questions or no? Any questions from the media?
You folks have any questions? We can pull a fight. Okay. Thank you so much for being here.
I would love to. I've been